Well, welcome, and I really hope this is the beginning of many of these events. This is really, really exciting for us at Tiffin University, and I want to really thank many people. I want to start with Alfreeda Goff. I first met Alfreeda because of Dr. Teal about a year ago now at the Women's Leadership Symposium for the NCAA down in Indianapolis, and I think you guys are going to love what she has to say, and I encourage you to ask her questions and really engage in what she has to say to you this evening. So please take full advantage of that. We're very lucky to have her here, so thank you for coming. We really appreciate that. Also, thank you to everybody. I hope I don't forget anybody that put this together. It took a lot of people to put this together. Obviously, we had community leaders that helped us as well as they're here today, and we really appreciate that. We have professional participants, many alumni, of course all the college students that are here, faculty and staff, and even a few high school students. So kudos to all of you for coming. And then most importantly, the committee who's put this together, and I believe their names are up here. They've gone to a lot of work, and I'll tell you, I've got to give Dr. Teal some credit. Whenever this woman has an idea, look out, all right? And she really did have this idea to do this, and she's put it together with the help of a lot of people, and we really appreciate it, and we hope we can build on it every year. So thank you to everybody. Enjoy the evening. I think you're going to love all the speakers that we have, and now I'd like to introduce Dr. Bonnie Teal.
Actually, it was Vicky's idea, not mine, and she says, hey, can we do this on campus? It was something, our script, it's not up here anymore. That helps. Wow, that helps a lot. So yeah, it was Vicky's idea, but that's okay because we did it, you're here, and that's wonderful. Wanted to mention that we couldn't do this without the financial support. We did not go externally outside the campus to ask anyone for donations. We went around the campus, and so we thank everyone who gave finances to get this on for our reception later, which will rock, some other things. Also wanted to mention there's plenty other donations that came through as far as whether it was services, the door prizes, and so there's a list of additional donations there. And with that, to kick it off, we wanted to start out with a few door prizes. They're going to be scattered around. But do we have any walleye fans in the house? The guy! Hey, would you like 4 tickets for this Sunday? You betcha, come on up. What's your name, sir? What's your name?
John Bennett.
Where do you go?
Tiffin.
All right, and what's your major?
Sports manager.
I love it. That was planned. We have another door prize. I tell you what, the way this university works and the support of women around here, one of our friends, local community members, is helping to put on another program similar to this about a month from now. Chris Peterson from Channel 11 News, you know the name? She's going to be here, part of a dream camp. And it's like a half-day seminar, and again, professional development. There is a slight cost to that. I think in your folder there's some information. But they wanted to give away a couple of free registrations for that, in addition to a book, I believe it's called The Dream Manager. And what we decided to do is pre-select someone that works at a very large organization here in Tiffin, Ohio, that can either use it for themselves or give it to a coworker and talk about getting more people to register for this great event with Chris Peterson coming on right here at Tiffin University. So the biggest place is Tiffin University, Heidelberg, and then Mercy Hospital, and a good very dear friend of mine is supposed to be here, Robin Gorel. Robin, are you here? We're still donating it to, she will be here, I know her. We're still donating that to Mercy Hospital. So that's that. And now I want to introduce Alfreeda Goff to come up and do the keynote for us and get us inspired to aspire higher. And I just want to say, I mean, there's information in your packet as far as her credentials and what she is, not only to intercollegiate athletics, but to sports in general, and to empowering women wherever she goes. It's been amazing. It's been an amazing ride with her, and I just want us to note that this is kicking off her farewell tour. This lady has announced that she will be leaving the full-time job scene after next year. So she just made it official recently. Her farewell tour starts right here, and we are the benefit of that. So with that, please give me a round of applause to Miss Alfreeda Goff.
Thank you, Bonnie, and good evening to everybody. We have a couple rules when I do any kind of presentations. I do expect questions, and if I don't get them, I volunteer you. So you better have your hands ready. But seriously, it is indeed my pleasure, and especially those of you in the front row, because I can see your name tags. It is indeed my pleasure to be here with you this evening. I've been trying to get to Tiffin University since I met Bonnie 14 years ago. We got together, we were doing similar programming, and she asked me if I would come and be a speaker, and it happened to be at the same time that she was doing her program, and I said, I'd love to do it, but I have a program in Indy. And we got smart and said, well, why don't we just combine our efforts? And so we've sort of been joined at the hip since that time. And we did Women's Leadership Symposium every other year in the Midwest. And it got to the point where other people saw what we were doing and saw the product and saw the results of the attendees and what they learned. The NCAA and then NACWA, the National Association for Collegiate Women Administrators, decided they wanted to take it over. So Bonnie and I talked about it, and we said, you know what, it is time. We've set the foundation, it's in a good place, so why not? Because what it did is allow us to do things like this, and more grassroots, because that's where we are. We're grassroots people, we want to give back. I'm sure I sort of glanced over and saw the flyer with my bio, and I said, oh my God, I've been here way too long doing this business, because we now single space, and the font is very tiny to get everything on the page. But it has been a great, great journey for me. I actually got into this business accidentally. This was not my career path plan. I'm a graduate of Slippery Rock State University, and I had intended to be a teacher in the Pennsylvania school system for 25 years, and then retire, and then move on to a second career, because I had it figured. I had my son when I was 25, so when he graduated from high school, I was 42, and he got out of college, I was 46. So I said, I have at least 20 more years to work, right? So I taught for 11 years and was helping a high school senior, a male student athlete who was all state and everything. And we had 2 high school counselors for 1,400 students. And the counselor came up to me and said, I need your help. And I said, well, what is it? She goes, can you mentor Gordon Jones? And I said, yeah, he's a student. I'll be more than happy. And I was a health and physical education teacher, so the only time I had males in my class was when we had the combined co-ed dance class and, of course, the health classes. But I did know Gordon and knew how good he was as a student athlete. He was an all-state in 3 sports. And he was a good person, just a good human being. But his family background was very bad. His father had just got released from a 20-year prison sentence, and his mother was a dope addict. So he was living with an uncle who was a good role model for him, but still wasn't mom and dad. So I didn't take on the role as mom and dad. I took on the role as being a friend and a mentor and providing what I hoped was positive advice. And he eventually signed with the University of Pittsburgh, and at that time, the coaches Johnny Majors and Jackie Sherrill were very prominent, very good, and came to me after he signed and said, if there's ever anything we can do to help you, we'd be more than happy to do that. So I sort of fluffed that off because I figured that was just, you know, them saying what was the right thing to say. Well, sure enough, 4 months later, I get a call from then the women's athletics director, because this is the mid-70s, right after Title IX had been passed. How many people know about Title IX? Because without Title IX, most of you would not be sitting in this room. Because it is an opportunity on the educational side. It's an educational rule that provided opportunities for women and minorities, the same that were being provided for the men. So I got an opportunity to go to Pitt, and I liked it a lot, and then eventually I went into full-time administration because I was a single mom, my husband had died, and I wanted to spend more time with my child. And I'm telling you this because you never know who you will help, who will come across your path while you're a student or when you get to whatever career you want that ends up paying you big-time benefits. If I don't help that young man, I do not have an opportunity to go to the University of Pittsburgh to be their track coach, nor do I have the opportunity to stay at Pitt and be an administrator, and then eventually go to Virginia Commonwealth, become their senior associate AD, later to go to Virginia State as their athletics director, and then to finish my career at the Horizon League as a senior associate commissioner. So you just never know who's going to help you while you're helping them. But I'm here to talk to you about unleashing your leadership potential. I had someone ask me, probably about 2 years ago, what does leadership mean to you? And I had to stop and think, and it was just 1 or 2 words, and I ended up with a list of 20. So as I go through my list, think about what your list would look like if someone said to you, what does leadership mean to you? The first, and this is not in any priority list, it's just whatever came to my mind. And the first thing I thought of was life experiences. Now that may not be your first thought, but it's mine because of the number of years I've been on this earth and what I've shared, what I've learned. Accepting challenges and taking risks. As a female in college athletics, we take those challenges and those risks every day because we work in a male-dominated industry. Think about it. We just celebrated, 40 years of Title IX 2 years ago, compared to how many years, actually centuries, that men have participated in sports. And we are still taking challenges and still taking risks because our job, our work is not done. Changing behaviors and minds, teaching and learning. That's the teacher in me. How many of you are in education, will be teachers or coaches? If I could see you raise your hands. That's really important as a leader. You are going to be changing behaviors and ideas, minds, teaching and learning. Establishing individual values. I hope that as a leader and as an individual, you will establish values and never compromise those values. It's not of any good if you establish a value and then you compromise it. Providing opportunities. And I think this is really important because one of my themes, people hear me speak and I say, if I do nothing else in my life or in my career, I always believe in each one, reach one. And I learned that as a 6-year-old in Sunday school. And that was important to me because I always felt as I was lifting someone up, someone was lifting me up. And so it's a chain. And there's a saying by, well, it's not a saying, it's actually a quote by Margaret Albright, who said, there's a special place in hell for women who do not help women. So remember that. Having an action plan and what steps have to be taken and decision making. You have to be able to make decisions, and let's be honest, we're not always going to make the right decisions as leaders. I can think real quick of how many bad decisions or wrong decisions I've made, but I've learned from them. That's the thing. It's one thing to make a bad decision and not learn from it. It's another to make a bad decision and learn from it and have some value. This one is really, really important, at least to me. Know when to talk and know when to listen as a leader. Think about the people that have come across your lives and who have you responded best to? That person who talks and never listens? Or that person who has an opportunity to say, okay, this is what I think, what do you think? And they're quiet and they listen to you. Be a visionary. Why do you think that's important to be a leader? because you want to make a change. If you think about a few sentences back, I said you want to change behaviors. And you can only do that if you're visionary. You got to be able to think out of the box. Don't do things the same way, or don't do things because Mary's doing it or Sally's doing it. And that goes back to taking risks and facing challenges. Integrity. If you had to rank them, I'd probably have integrity first. Because to me, that's a value that I hope that I've never broken. People with integrity will stand their ground and will not deviate from it if they truly, truly have integrity. And I think that's important in leadership today. If you want people to follow you, they will do so if you show that you have integrity in your leadership. Humility. Don't get the long arm and always pat yourself on the back. You know, Bonnie is a good example. She may be the driver behind the program, but she quickly gave Vicki the credit because that's the way we work. Be humble. Accept praise with humility. Teamwork. I tell people all the time, oh, I'm good at my job because of the people I surround myself with. I laughed today when they gave me my tag, and on the bottom it says expert. I'm only an expert because I've been here longer than you guys. That's what that means. But seriously, teamwork. I have never accomplished anything without the help of someone. And I've been smart in my hires to make sure that I hire people that, as we used to say, are the right fit and they're on the right bus. Now, have there been times when I've had to stop the bus and ask people to get off? Oh yeah. But you have to do that. And when you do, you make sure you go to the next bus stop and make sure you get the right person. Sometimes being a leader is going to be lonely because there are going to be times when you have to make decisions and there's no one there to support you. There's going to be times when you know you're right and everybody in the room is against you. And there's just times where in the business, whether it's athletics or education, being a leader, it's just a lonely spot because you're the person out front. Think about it. How many times do you think when the President of the United States goes to bed at night and he goes, I don't know why I did this because right now nobody's on board with me. So think about that. How many times has that happened to you, either as a teammate, as a teacher, as a leader of a program? How many times have you said, God, I don't know why I'm doing this because nobody's on board with me. But it's okay, because a good leader, a strong leader, will get through that. Be inspirational. Inspire others to be the best that they can be. They don't have to be you. I tell people all the time, I really don't want to clone another Alfreeda Goff, but what I want to clone are people who want to do the right thing for other people, whether it be in business, education, sports, whatever it happens to be. Have compassion. Oftentimes, as leaders, we get so caught up in what we're doing, we forget that other people have lives, other people have families, and there's times when you may have to just walk in a room somewhere and say, it's okay. It's okay if you don't get this project done because I know you have a family problem or you haven't felt good, or I put too much on your plate and I didn't realize it. So you got to have compassion for the people you're leading and the people you're with. You wanted to continue to grow as an individual. I think that's important. Someone said, oh, you know so much. And I always say, and I have so much more to learn. No one has all the answers. You can always learn something. And it's amazing because I love being around young people because I always learn something from young people. You know, I could be an old person and yeah, you could probably learn something from me. But I'm amazed at what I learned from young people today. Because it's a different time, different generation. Things are different for you. You know, I grew up typing on a typewriter. Some of you probably have never ever even seen a typewriter. And I have a 9-year-old granddaughter who has her own Surface digital computer. And I was like, okay, Grandma's really behind. So I try to stay up with her. Make time for others. That's part of the compassion. I think when people call upon you to do something and you're available, I think you should do it. It's a part of that giving back. Giving back is important, that's service. Be honest. I think that's very important. I'd rather you look at me and say, Frida, I screwed that up, rather than say, I didn't do that. Mary did it. I told her to do it and she did it wrong. I'll have much more respect for you if you own up to your mistakes, because you're human. And lastly, I like this, be creative. Think out of the box. With all the technology we have today, you can do so many more things than I could at your age, which is a long time ago. But be creative. I always say, no idea is a bad idea. It may not be the right idea at this time. So, let your creative juices flow. I am very passionate about looking to famous leaders and see what they do and see what they don't do. And when Bonnie said our topic would be unleashing your leadership potential, I went to my leadership quotes, because I think it's important that you understand that you are who you are. You stand on the shoulders of those who've gone before you. Maya Angelou, I'm assuming most of you know who she is. Great African-American woman, leader, poet. And my favorite quote for her, or from her, nothing will work unless you do. Think about that. As a leader, if you are not doing the little things for your team that you're leading or whatever you're leading, do you think you will accomplish anything? How many of you have been in a situation where you've had a team captain, and this is probably anyone who's played in sports, who was really a good leader and you got behind them? Let me see your hands. How many of you you believe you had a good captain, a good leader? Now, a show of hands, how many of you have been in situations where you've had a poor leader? Many more hands go up. And that's probably because they didn't do what Maya said. Nothing will work unless you do. You lead by example. You lead by example. Sometimes it's hard to be a female leader. It's not easy, especially in sports, in education. She was just promoted to vice president. There was a time when I can remember in higher ed, women did not hold those positions. There was a time when women did not hold the position as president or chancellor of your institutions. There was a time when women did not hold the position of athletics directors over men and women's programs. And it wasn't that long ago, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking mid-60s. There was a time when because of your gender, you were not admitted to certain grad schools. University of Virginia, as late as 1964, would not admit women to their medical school and would put on your application, not admitted because you are a female. Now, today we'd be in court, wouldn't we? We would be in court, but we have leaders who said that's not the right thing to do. We have leaders who worked at making change and people followed. When do you know you have leadership skills or potential? When do you think you know that? Anybody?
When you want
21?
it. No, when you want it.
When you want it, okay? How many of you thought you were leaders when you were in elementary school? Grades 1 through 5, that's the elementary. How many of you thought you were leaders? All right. How many of you thought you were leaders by the time you got to middle school? So that's grades 6 through 8. A few more hands up. How many of you thought you were leaders once you got into the high school, grades 9 through 12? How many of you, now that you're in college, think you're leaders? That's interesting, that we had more hands up when you were in high school than when you were in college. Why do you think that is? Different scene, okay? So now it's an environment that you're not comfortable with, right? You gotta learn a new environment.
Because people believe that they haven't received or went to the potential that they want to go, so they don't think they're leaders at this point.
Okay. Let me tell you when I think you were probably leaders, had the potential to be leaders, and you either took advantage of it or didn't. When you were in elementary school. Think about it. Were you the kid that organized all the games on the playground? Were you the kid that passed out the papers for the teachers? Were you the kid that when it was time to have somebody represent your room in student council or student government, whatever they called it, you were it? See, I'm seeing all these heads nod, these smiles. That's when your leadership starts. Elementary. Some of us might be late bloomers. My granddaughter, who's very talented academically, she's a 3rd grader and she's tested out 5th grade academically and is going to be a part of the Johns Hopkins special program for elementary kids. In 1st grade, her classmates wanted her to be on this, they call it student council. And she really didn't know what that meant, so she turned it down. So she came home and talked to her mother about it, and her mother explained what it was about, and that she was being nominated by her classmates because they thought she was a leader. And she goes, oh yeah, I am a leader, I know that. But she didn't understand what student council was all about. So, I mean, at age 6, she was already in the leadership role. And I think most of you, I think by middle school, probably had some leadership potential, but just maybe didn't have it come out yet. What do you have to do with your leadership skills? One of the first things I think you need to do with your leadership skills is to let people know you have leadership skills. Don't keep it. It's not a big secret. Don't keep it to yourself. And that doesn't mean you have to go around and pat yourself and say, hey, look at me. Look at me. I'm a leader. But you can go to people in leadership positions and say, I would like to participate on your team. I would like to participate in your program. I want to help you. Where can I help you? There are opportunities every day for you to be a leader. You just have to know where they are and when you can be a leader. And don't be embarrassed if somebody says, well, Frida, I really don't have anything for you right now. That's okay. But what you've done is you've introduced yourself to Bonnie Teal and said, down the road, Bonnie, if you have something available for me, I'd be happy to be on your leadership team. So don't ever be embarrassed or feel like, well, they turned me down once, they don't want me. It just may not be the right time. Who has provided you with leadership opportunities? I think that's really, really important as you grow into being a leader or the leader. Who are some of the people in your lives that have helped you with leadership opportunities? Coaches. All right, if you've been a student athlete, you're absolutely right. Who else has provided you with leadership opportunities? An employer. Exactly. There you go. Mom, and sometimes mom and dad. Because who has the most influence on your life, hopefully, as you're growing up? Your parents. Your parents. Who else might have provided? Yes. Okay, advisors on the campuses. Who else? Professors. Yes. Say that again. Okay, she said musical directors. Obviously, she's involved in music somewhere along the line. What about your pastor, your priest, or your minister? Yeah, I'm hearing, yeah. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up in a small community just like Tiffin, we had less than 17,000 people. We probably had about 8,000 people. But it was also a time where every town had all the amenities that they needed. And our pastor was very engaged with the young people in our church. And he provided us all types of leadership opportunities and had us go to programs. I remember going to a junior missionary program. I was 15 years old. It was my first time on a college campus. It was with other junior missionaries in the Baptist church system. And I thought, what a great opportunity for me, one, to grow in my religion, and two, to meet other young people and grow with them and learn from them. So I don't know how active the priests and the pastors are nowadays, but I know my pastor was very influential in my leadership growth as a kid. Who are some other people that might have influenced? Your friends, exactly. Think about who you hang out with. And when you come to college, and this is so true, you know how you have all your BFFs when you're in high school? You know. But you go your different ways, and you might stay best friends forever with one or two of them. But who actually ends up being your BFFs? The friends you meet in college. And they have a big influence on what and whom and how. I still talk to the first roommate that I had when I went to college, and that was in 1961. We have remained friends all of those years. Why? Because we formed a bond as roommates, you know, two freshmen, you know, and we enjoyed the same things. And so that bond was forged forever. Now, am I still friends with my high school friends? Yes. But because I moved away, I don't see them as often. And my very best friend from high school, she and I did remain friends up until her death. But you do grow, because most of the time you don't move back home. How many of you plan to move back home after you graduate? Yeah, not too many hands going up. You know, you sort of want to strike out on your own, and that's understandable. But all the people that you have named have provided you, will provide you with opportunities to unleash your leadership potential. How do you grow and become a leader? It's easy for me to stand up here and give you all this rhetoric, but how do you really do this? How do you think you grow as a leader? Trial and error. Amen. Can you say that nice and loud again? Trial and error. Because I said earlier, we're going to make mistakes. If we think we're perfect, then my name is not Frida, it's something else. Okay? And I'm far from perfect. So, trial and error helps you to grow as a leader. What's some other way that you can grow? You notice I like to have audience participation. What are some other ways that you can grow as a leader?
Tell yourself you can. Set the goal.
Set goals. Believe in yourself. That's key. If you don't believe that you can do it, how can I believe you can do it? Think about that. Think about some of the things you've had to do that were challenges, were risks, and somehow you managed to get it done because you said, I'm going to do this. This is not going to defeat me. I'm going to win this battle. And you may not have had that many conversations saying that right now at your young age, but when you get to my age, when you hit the big 5-0, the big 6-0, the big 7-0, oh yeah, you're going to have a lot of those conversations. Because nothing, absolutely nothing that is worth working for will come just easy. Think about those of you who are still in classes and it's almost finals time and you're striving to get that A. Did you just show up and the professor gave you an A? No. What did you have to do? You had to work for it. Now, some of you, it might be a little easier work. For others, it might be a little more work. But either way, you had to work for it. Either way, you had to work for it. Eddie Robinson, famous football coach, had the most wins for a long time, sent a lot of young men from Grambling to the NFL. He said, leadership, like coaching, is fighting for the hearts and the souls of men and women and getting them to believe in you. Think about that. How many of you aspire to be coaches? How many of you aspire to be teachers? How many of you aspire to be in the business world? How many of you aspire to be in the medical world? All great professions, regardless of what title you have. But if you're going to be a leader, it's like coaching. It really is. You are fighting for the hearts of men and women to get them to believe in you. John F. Kennedy. We know who John F. Kennedy is, right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. I mean, I know I'm old and he's been dead a while, but hopefully you know your history. See, when I grew up, you had to know all the presidents. You had to be able to stand up at a drop of the hat and recite the presidents in order, the preamble, the Constitution, and the Declaration of Independence. And my favorite, Gettysburg Address. Now, oftentimes it was a lot of busy work because the teachers didn't really want to spend time teaching us. So they said, okay, this is what we're doing today. But John F. Kennedy said, leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. You can't have one without the other. Every day as a leader, at the end of the day, you should be able to say, I learned something today. Think about it. Can you say that now? And I'm not talking about in your classroom where you're learning your lessons. I'm talking about leadership, anything outside of the classroom. Can you say that? At the end of the day. And it could be something as simple as, I just found out that Mary has a little brother who she loves dearly. It doesn't have to be anything major, but you just learned something about Mary that you didn't know, which might impact how she reacts to whatever you're doing. Because you may be saying, I got this little brother at home and he's a pain in you know what. And Mary's saying, well, I can't relate to that because I love my little brother and we get along. So it teaches you and provides you with an opportunity that I've learned something about Mary, and maybe Mary's standing off from me because she feels like I don't like little brothers because I'm having a bad day with my little brother. Who knows who Ray Kroc is? Oh, okay. I noticed those of us who have a few years raised our hands. Anybody who is 21 or younger know who Ray Kroc is? Tell them who he is. All right, the founder of McDonald's. Now think about this man. Founder of McDonald's. Multi-million billionaire. Thanks to all of you spending your money. When he first opened McDonald's, and she will probably remember, they had a number of how many burgers were sold each day. And when I was growing up, it was like millions, so we thought that was big time. Oh my God, they've sold this many million hamburgers. Well, now it's in the billions. It's so big, they don't even put the number up anymore. But obviously, he was a man with a vision. He was a man who was compassionate. He was a man who was had humility. And he said, the quality of a leader is reflected in the standard they set for themselves. Think about that. Do you think McDonald's would be franchised and as famous and make as much money as it did if they did not set standards for the food and the service that they were providing their customers? Probably the greatest thing he did was, this is the standard I'm setting for my company, and I'm not going to settle for less. And anyone who is a part of my team, they have to accept that. That is a great leader. Leaders aren't born, they are made. And they are made just like anything else, through hard work. And that is the price we will have to pay to achieve a goal or any goal in life. Vince Lombardi. Who knows who Vince Lombardi is? Oh, a few more hands went up. Again, it's the older group. Who's Vince Lombardi?
I actually don't remember what college, but
He was a very famous football coach. And he was with the Packers. And the NFL trophy for the Super Bowl is named after him. And one of the reasons it is named after him and not some other coach is because of his leadership skills and what he stood for. He believed in hard work, and if you ever have an opportunity to sit down and read one of his books or listen and see on the old tapes, old NFL stories about Vince Lombardi, every one of his former players who played for him say the same thing. He was a great leader of men. He believed in us, he pushed us, but he didn't push us any harder than he would have pushed himself. Who knows who Groucho Marx is? Okay, this is I don't want to call you old, the seasoned people. Who knows who Groucho Marx is? The lady in the brown suit. Can you tell us? Mm-hmm. He was an actor, but he was also known for what? His cigar. Seriously, she's right, his cigar. He was a comedian. And he had a real dark, heavy, thick, if you ever see any black and white, you'll see him in there. And he also was an MC of his show, and he was part of the Marx Brothers. And he has a quote that is one of my favorites also. Only one man in 1,000 is a leader of men or women. The other 999 follow the women. So he was smart enough to know that, yeah, men can lead, but women can too. Because he was popular, I call them the black and white TV days. So we're talking the 40s and the 50s and early 60s. But he was wise enough to realize, back then, even as a comedian, you can be a leader, and it's not because you're a man, but because you are a good leader, and your gender should not and does not play a role in being a good leader. Winston Churchill. You know who he is? Okay, more people shaking their head. Tell me who Winston Churchill is. Politician from? Okay. Tell me a little more. Who else knows some more about Winston Churchill? He was from the UK, and he was their what? Prime Minister. And very influential in ending World War II. He had said, mountaintops inspire leaders, but valleys nurture them. What did he mean by that? Who knows what he meant by that? Yes?
It's easy to lead when you're at the top, but it's when you're at your lowest that you have to fight through it and to get back to the top.
Exactly. It's easy to get up there and be a leader and everything's very good. But as soon as you start going back down into the valley, you have to nurture, redo, rethink. You need help to get back up there. And sometimes, while you're in the valley, before you even get up there, you may need to spend some time to be nurtured to get up. Because remember, the same people you pass going up that ladder, that mountainside, you do what? Pass them on the way down. And I've always said, I may not agree with what you do or how you do it, but the one thing I learned early on, you do not burn bridges, because you may need that bridge to get back to another area. It is not fair to ask of others what you are not willing to do yourself. That goes back to, they will work hard if they see you working hard. That was Teddy Roosevelt. Who's Teddy Roosevelt? President, exactly. President in his early 1900s, and was considered a Rough Rider because he rode a horse, and he actually went around before he became president to actually clean up America. He was sort of like our police on horse. Leadership should be more participation than directive, more enabling than performing. Those of you in music may know this name, Marian Anderson. Anyone know who Marian Anderson is?
Yes.
Famous soprano opera, one of the first African American women to be in the opera house in Carnegie, back in a time when it was not received well that people of color or people who were not of Caucasian persuasion were in places like that. But think about that. Leadership is more participation. In other words, make sure that the people you are leading, that you include them in the plan, in the action, in the delivery, and everything that goes with that. It is very bad to be a female leader. While it's assumed that any man, no matter how tough, has a stiff side, any female leader is assumed to be one-dimensional. Billie Jean King. Anyone who knows Billie Jean King knows that she has been fighting for women and women's rights since she's had a racket in her hand. How many of you know who Billie Jean King is? Young people, Google her, research her. Believe me, again, without the Billie Jean Kings of the world and being solid leaders, I would not be standing here, you would not be sitting here. One of the things that I had a book, The Right to Lead by John Maxwell. If you get a chance to read that, Google it or download it, whatever you guys do. I don't know if people even go to the libraries anymore. But John Maxwell, he talks about what gives a man or woman the right to lead. It certainly isn't gained by election or appointment. Having position, title, rank, or degree doesn't qualify anyone to lead. And the ability doesn't come automatically from age or experience. No, it would be accurate to say that no one can be given the right to lead. The right to lead can only be, what do you think? I think I heard it over here. Earn, exactly. And that takes what? To earn that, it takes what? Hard work and dedication. And what else? Determination, effort, and it takes what? There's one more word that we need. Time, there you go. Are you the kind of leader that others want to follow? Think about it. As you sit here and you do a self-evaluation of being a leader, are you someone that the people in this room would want to follow? And if you don't think you aren't, then why? What do you have to do to change you to make people want to follow you? You know, the Pied Pipers. Everybody know who the Pied Piper was? Growing up with that little story. What the Pied Piper do? What did he do? He had a little what? He drove the rats out of Hamlin. And how did he do that? With his pipe. And he played music that they liked. And he got every rat in that little town to follow him out of the city into the river, and they drowned. That's a good thing. Rats aren't good. But think about that. His leadership ability. So think about, do you have that ability to sort of be the Pied Piper of your group, of your organization, of your team, and are people willing to follow you? Build positive relationships. That is very, very important. I tell people all the time, I live for my relationships that I have with people in the business. And my staff, they're young like you guys are, they're in their mid-20s. And when we go to meetings, I try to introduce them to people that I know. And they just tease me all the time about, we can't go anywhere without somebody not knowing you. And I'm at the Final Four at Nashville, and I'm seated about 10 rows up, and I'm on the aisle seat. So during the halftime, I stand up, and my communications director was seated next to me, and he goes, okay, this will be the Alfreeda Goff show. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, I'm telling you, between now and the end of halftime, I'm betting 10 people are going to come up here and say, Alfreeda, it's great to see you. How have you been? I said, get out of here, no. And he was right. Actually, it was more than 10. Because over the years, I've built relationships. And these are people that I don't see on a regular basis. These are people from when I worked at Pitt, when I worked at Virginia Commonwealth, when I worked at Virginia State, that I've developed relationships, and I don't see them all the time, and I don't hear from them all the time, but the relationship that we've built is solid. And those are the kind of working relationships you want as a leader. Because eventually, they may need you, or you may need them. And you don't ever want to have someone that you don't like call upon you to help them out. Because I have a back problem, I can't tell people no. And my staff just chuckle. I said, I'm not gonna do this anymore. And they're gonna like, yeah, that'll last for all of 2 minutes. Because you do not know how to say no, because you're compassionate. One of my leadership skills. Rely on discipline, not emotion. In other words, no knee-jerk reactions as a leader. Think about that. Think about how many times you've had to sit in a meeting, or a teammate or someone's told you, or you sit in a class where somebody walks in, and the first thing they do is, because somebody wasn't sitting up straight or somebody came in late, there's this negative reaction. Rather than taking that opportunity and what I call make it a teachable moment. That's what good leaders do. Because I don't know about you, but if somebody's screaming at me, what do? You shut down. You shut down. My son, if he was here, would tell you the worst punishment that I could ever give him for misbehaving was to lecture in a very calm voice. I never screamed at him. I never hit him. Give you an example. He's a high school junior. Good student, good athlete. And I'm like, I got a call from the principal today. And the principal said, you cut school. He goes, yes, ma'am, I did. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're on discipline for the next 6 weeks. You cannot receive any phone calls. And this is how I'm talking to him. You cannot receive any phone calls. You cannot have any friends over. You cannot go over to the Y after you come home. And that's it. I didn't scream. I didn't yell. I didn't pound the table. I didn't say you were stupid. I didn't do any of that. That got his attention a lot quicker than me screaming at him and pounding my fist and saying, I'm going to kill you, how stupid are you? I reacted and said, you made a mistake and you will learn from this mistake. And he did. It never happened again. Or at least he was smart enough not to get caught. I won't say it never happened again. Mother never knew that he cut class again. Work with excellence. Always give your best, no matter what the task is. And as a leader, if people see you working at a high level, they will respond because they want to be part of that. They want to please their leader. Think about it. When you are on a team, your leader is your coach. Don't you want to please that coach? When you're in your classroom, you're doing your classwork, and you're doing your tests, you want to do your best because you want to please that teacher. When you're doing things for mom and dad, and I know all of us want to please our parents because we never want to disappoint our parents. So you're always going to work at that level, or at the best possible level that you can do. Now, are we going to fall short? Yes. No one's perfect. You will fall short. But it's okay. As long as you can get up, dust yourself off, even as a leader, and stand in front of your group and say, didn't make a good decision on that today. But here's what we are going to do. We're going to work together and we're going to make it better the next time around. Being a leader gives you a lot of power, but you have to be willing to give your power away. What does that mean? Delegate. What's another word? Speak up. Okay. What's another word that we would use? Compromise. What else do we do with our power? Trust. Trust it to someone else. And why is that important? As a leader, why is that important? You can't do everything. Even though I'm pretty darn good at what I do, I can't do everything. I oversee 19 championships at the Horizon League. Do you think I run all 19? The answer is no. I have a championship staff. I've delegated to them the running of specific championships, and I trust them, I engage them, I share with them, and sometimes I have to compromise because sometimes I may want it done a certain way, and they'll come in and say, well, we really think we can do it this way, and we'll still get the end result. And you know how, as you get a little older, you sort of get settled in your ways? You don't know that yet. But those of us who sort of get settled in our ways, and we have a hard time saying, let's do it a little different, because we're in our comfort zone. And when you get to be my age, and some of these other ladies who are here, you'll understand that. You get comfortable. And it's not that the power has gone to your head, but you think this is the only way to do it. Until you give away some of that power to someone else who may find a better, a more efficient, and a better way financially to get things done. In closing, because I told Bonnie I like to talk and she knows that, and I enjoy talking, and hopefully what I've said today has helped you sort of stimulate, because I didn't want to lecture, I wanted to engage you. Normally I have a lavalier on and I'm walking, and I'm down in the audience and calling people out, but I want to give you the opportunity to ask me some questions, either professional or personal questions at this time. And
For the sake of time, why don't we save that for the networking session?
okay, we can do that. Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate your attention and your participation.